Hey everyone! Just to tide us all over until the next review, I decided it would be a good idea to count the number of references I could find in a PS1 classic, Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. I figured it would make for a short video, but yeah, there are a lot more than I was expecting, so let's just say it led me down a rabbit hole.
Bugs Bunny Lost in Time is quite possibly my favourite Looney Tunes game.
Great!
However, from a critical perspective in terms of gameplay, I don't think it's the best one. That title would go to the little known Sheep, Dog and Wolf, an incredibly inventive and smart stealth game that cleverly incorporates gags from the classic shorts to convey a series of unique and challenging puzzles. The game sees Ralph Wolf procure one sheep at a time from Sam Sheepdog's flock until the entire flock is depleted. An original and inspired concept. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, meanwhile, isn't so conceptually impressive. The gameplay is much simpler, and the concept of time travel feels like Warner Brothers' somewhat derivative answer to Disney's Mickey Mania, which also sees an animated icon journey through a number of levels inspired by their filmography.
The timeless adventures of me, Mickey Mouse!
While it may not be an overly original idea, for me, the appeal of Bugs Bunny Lost in Time lies in its variety and its abundance of recognisable references to the classic Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies filmography. Each and every era in the game pays homage to the classic cartoons from the Golden Age, and I figured it would be a good idea to highlight them all.
Ready to get loony? Let's dive in!
I thought it would make sense to discuss the references not in the order of the levels, but in the order of the eras. This is due to the fact that Bugs jumps back and forth in time throughout the game, and it makes more sense to list the references in each era rather than constantly flitting back and forth.
I figured it would save time, so to speak.
Here I am, Pismo Beach.
The game opens with our eponymous grey hair inadvertently stumbling upon a time machine after having taken a wrong turn on his way to Pismo Beach.
This doesn't look like Pismo Beach.
This is obviously a reference to the fact that he often makes this mistake in the shorts.
Well, here we are, Pismo Beach and all the clams we can eat. Yipes.
Upon activating the time machine, Bugs winds up in a place called Nowhere, where he encounters a silo, home to Merlin of Monroe, a sorcerer who travels in time as a hobby.
A sorcerer soothsayer, you say? Let's pop in for a spell!
This entire opening sequence, including much of its dialogue, the setting, and even the loading screen, is derived from the 1955 cartoon Nightmare Hare. This is particularly interesting to me, as I'm pretty certain a lot of people grew up with this game, little realizing that Merlin is actually a pre-existing one-shot character. During the training exercise, one of the abilities we're taught is the ability to use Bugs' ears like a helicopter in order to land softly on fragile surfaces.
Now that's what I call lighter than hair.
Toodaloo.
The one time I recall Bugs doing this of his own accord is in a cartoon from 1960, funnily enough also titled Lighter Than Hair, in which he stars alongside a spaceman Yosemite Sam.
Yosemite Sam of outer space?
The basic concept of the game is that Bugs needs to collect clock symbols to journey through time, as well as golden carrots. And collecting all the golden carrots in Nowhere will reward him with his first clock symbol. Speaking of golden carrots, is it just me who thinks they missed a trick here of limiting it to 24 carrots per level? Well anyway, there are only 10 in Nowhere, so on the plus side it's not long until we can move on.
Well, it's about time! Literally.
I'd like to say we get to move on from this creep too, but he quickly becomes Bugs' mentor and only friend throughout the game.
I guess beggars can't be choosers. These are desperate times, I suppose. Whatever time this is.
As soon as we've obtained enough golden carrots to earn us our first clock symbol, we get to explore the first era, the Stone Age.
What's up, Doc?
Wabbit.
This era is predominantly inspired by a cartoon titled Prehistorical Hare from 1958, in which a caveman incarnation of Elmer Fudd hunts Bugs' ancestor, a saber-toothed rabbit. I would argue that this cartoon represents one of the few lackluster cartoons of the 50s, which is why I find it kind of interesting that it serves as inspiration for the entire first era. Really, it's a genuinely dreary and insipid cartoon, so it's pretty surprising that they decided it was worthy of acknowledgement.
Yeah, we've only just begun and we've already hit rock bottom. And what better place to happen than in a Stone Age? How appropriate.
There don't seem to be many more references in this era, and those that are present aren't all that impressive.
Whoa!
The loading screen for the boss level Guess Who Needs a Kickstart contains a silhouette of Elmer, which seems to be derived from a scene in the infamous Rabbit of Seville.
Ouch!
And speaking of this level, the way in which Bugs Bunny kicks Elmer, and arguably by extension the kick action used throughout the game, is incredibly reminiscent of the scene in which Bugs kicks Wile E. Coyote in Operation Rabbit from 1952.
I'm not including this as a direct reference, as it is a little tenuous, but I think we can all agree on one thing: I watch too many cartoons.
Rabbit season.
The bonus level Wabbit or Duck Season is clearly inspired by the Duck Season Wabbit Season trilogy.
Sorry, that's trilogy.
And adopts the look of rabbit seasoning and rabbit fire. The loading screen is also inspired by a background from the former. Oh, and before we leave this era, I just want to add that throughout the game, Bugs often has to break a certain number of Acme boxes to earn a clock symbol. This is obviously a reference to the Acme Corporation, responsible for producing the outlandish products used in a multitude of shorts. Although this is not a direct reference to a particular cartoon, I nonetheless figured it was worth a mention. Otherwise, the Stone Age contains no obvious references as far as I can tell, so I'm happy to move on from this era. Let's just say I'm not the, biggest fan.
Whether you think it's Wabbit or Duck Season, I think we can all agree that the Stone Age is so last season. So let's see what the next era has in store for us.
Things get a little more interesting in the medieval period. First of all, the loading screen for this era is inspired by the title card for the award-winning Nighty Night Bugs from 1958. This coat of arms is also present in several areas around the castle.
Ouch!
As for the castle itself, I'm not certain if this location is derived from a particular cartoon. I actually think it might be a composite of several castles. The presence of the King's Carrot Patch is likely a reference to Rabbit Hood from 1949, although the castle seen in that short looks completely different to this one. Meanwhile, the crown symbol seen on all the flags around the castle looks like the King's crown seen in Shishka Bugs from 1962, although whether it's supposed to is uncertain.
Hey, what's up, witch doctress? Hey!
The main plot regarding Witch Hazel's pursuance of Bugs Bunny for her cauldron is inspired specifically by the episode A Witch's Tangled Hair,
Oh, broomsticks.
and also reuses some of its dialogue.
Hey, what's cooking, Zsa Zsa?
Zsa Zsa? Oh, you're sweet.
The loading screen for the level Which Way to Albuquerque is also adapted from the title card for this episode, and the name of the level itself is obviously based on a recurring theme that Bugs would regularly take the wrong turn at Albuquerque when trying to reach a particular destination.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
I would actually argue that the game designers took inspiration from all three cartoons in which Bugs Bunny faces Witch Hazel, including her debut cartoon, Bewitched Bunny, released in 1954, which also sees the first appearance of her anthropomorphic broom. Replicas of which are seen sweeping the castle ramparts in the era's opening level, What's Cookin' Doc. What's more, the loading screen for this level is inspired by a scene from a 1956 cartoon called Broomstick Bunny. As a side note, this level also shares its name with a Bob Clampett cartoon from 1944, but aside from the title, it has nothing to do with the level otherwise. After all, Witch Hazel didn't make her first appearance for another decade. And despite Witch Hazel being the era's main antagonist, Robin Duck seems to be a much greater annoyance. This dude is essentially Daffy Duck in his Robin Hood guise, inspired by the 1958 short Robin Hood Daffy.
Yikes! And away!
and he shows up a number of times.
Hey!
You might even say he steals the show, and believe me, the show's not the only thing he's stealing.
Hey!
Honestly, this guy is irritating as hell. He steals your golden carrots in the Forgotten Woods, and also the apples you need to weigh down a switch in the Royal Gardens.
Hey!
This is in keeping with the character of Robin Hood, of course. He steals from the rich and steals from the poor as well, apparently. What the hell, man?
In the Carrot Henge mystery, he's seen balancing on a log with his staff, which is a direct reference to a scene in the cartoon. Also, while we're here, if you swivel the log but are not quick enough to kick him off, he'll turn around and catch you in the act. And when he does so, the audio is delayed and bizarrely rather slow.
Hey!
It's a weird glitch and kind of unintentionally creepy.
Hey!
Speaking of this level, this is also the last time we see Witch Hazel, and it's only for a quick spell too, as it's not long until she croaks. No, really, she croaks. Literally.
This level's loading screen also uses the title card from Nightmare Hare, and throughout the medieval period, we also repeatedly encounter the sneezing dragon from Nighty Night Bugs. This era is also notable for being the sole era in which Bugs Bunny is taught some magic tricks to help him progress,
Ollie Ollie action free.
including a super jump, a special tune to trigger certain events, the ability to open magic doors,
Open sesame.
and a fan ability.
Hocus pocus.
I guess that's what you call hair conditioning.
The magic door ability requires Bugs to say the words "Open Sesame,"
Open sesame.
and although I don't consider this to be a direct reference at all, this does remind me of the scene from Alibaba Bunny.
You open sesame?
As for the special tune, this is a reference to the running gag used in a number of shorts, in which the characters will play those endearing young charms, get the notes wrong, and thus avoid getting blown to smithereens. Here you need to whistle the very same tune to Beaky Buzzard, so that he'll carry you to a higher level of the castle, and the way in which he does so appears to be a direct reference to the 1942 short Bugs Bunny Gets the Boyd.
I suppose that's what you'd call a hair lift. Alright, I'll stop, I promise.
You're despicable.
Chronologically, the next era is the Pirate Years. The main plot is inspired by 1954 short Captain Hairblower. And there are two loading screens in this era that are derived from this cartoon. You could also argue that this era is, in part, inspired by Buccaneer Bunny from 1948. Being as Captain Hairblower is a sort of spiritual sequel/remake of this cartoon. But the overall look and feel of these levels is definitely more in line with the latter. And although the level when Sam met Bunny is clearly inspired by a scene from this particular cartoon, the loading screen is actually derived from a Daffy Duck and Speedy Gonzales cartoon from 1965, titled as Salt and Peppered, which clearly has nothing to do with the level otherwise. But, as I say, this era is mostly derived from Captain Hairblower and little else, so it seems as though they decided to keep the references to a minimum.
You might say they didn't want to go overboard. I'll show myself out.
Throughout the pirate years, you also encounter this pirate who bears a resemblance to Black Jacques Shellac, first seen in 1959's Bonanza Bunny.
What's up, Shock?
Your hands up! That's what?
Oh, and the shark scene in the level What's Up, Doc appears to resemble Dopey Dick from the cartoon Rabbitson Crusoe. This reference is especially noticeable when Bugs is required to throw him a bone to distract him, much like the scene in which Yosemite Sam does the exact same thing to lure him away.
Here, boy, here! Go get it!
This cartoon's title card was also utilised for the loading screen for the level Follow the Red Pirate Road, although nothing in this level has anything to do with said cartoon. It could be argued that the desert island hub world may be somewhat inspired by Robinson Crusoe, considering Bugs is stranded on an island and the humorous sign indicating the distance from all the locations is kinda reminiscent of the sign for San Francisco in the cartoon. Although, to be honest, this island actually reminded me more so of Daffy and Speedy being marooned in Daffy Duck's movie Fantastic Island, a compilation movie released in 1983, which also includes scenes from Captain Hairblower and depicts Sam in the very same pirate outfit throughout.
Oh, there's your bad-tempered snaggletooth varmint!
Here he's partnered with a Tasmanian devil, and considering the popularity of the character during the 90s, it surprises me that they didn't try to shoehorn him in the game somehow.
I guess that'll have to wait till the sequel. Or would you call it a spin-off?
Before we move on from this era, I just want to point out that they used the late great Mel Blanc's vocals for Sam's dialogue.
Come back here, you mangy mutineering rabbit!
And I have to admit, I have no clue where these quotes are originally from, so I'm unsure if these lines are taken from pre-existing Looney Tunes media, or if they're simply previously unused stock footage. If anybody actually knows, feel free to leave a comment. Anyway, that seems about it for the pirate years, so next we'll take a look at the 1930s. The title card for which is taken from a cartoon called Catty Cornered, starring Rocky in his only role alongside Sylvester and Tweety.
You did to your putty tent.
While the main plot of this era pays homage to the Rocky and Muggsy cartoons in which they're pitted against Bugs Bunny. The level, The Big Bank Withdrawal, derives some inspiration from the cartoon Bugs and Thugs, with the loading screen having reused a background from the opening of this cartoon. While the short itself does not take place in the bank, the plot does concern a bank robbery, and the depiction of Muggsy, including his voice, is most similar to his appearance here.
Yeah, keep working, Rabbit.
Shut up.
Black Jacques Shellac continues to appear as a generic gangster, although he still makes noises like a pirate for some reason. I guess he was just so invested in that role. Anyway, as far as I can tell, that's all the references for this level, unless this painting is a reference to a specific cartoon. I'm not sure, but it looks like some background scenery, albeit not very interesting. It's kinda boring, but it might be from a cartoon?
Yeah, I really wouldn't bank on it.
Oh boy.
Also, I'm unsure if the security guards are based on anyone specific. And just as a side note, they're about as useless as all the security guards from all the licensed games I've ever played.
Oh, come on, this is the bank security? He was beaten by a hair.
The level, The Greatest Escape, notably derives inspiration from 1957's Bugsy and Muggsy, as it sees the gangsters hide out in a dilapidated hotel. The plot may not be exactly the same, but there are clearly elements that are reused, and some of the background artwork is fairly similar too, in my opinion. This level also sees Bugs play the aforementioned magical tune on a piano, which is arguably a direct reference to the gag seen in Ballot Box Bunny, being as this appears to be the only scene in the classic shorts in which Bugs plays his tune on an actual piano. Probably my favourite level of the era is Objects in the Mirror. It sees you pursued by the two gangsters, constantly switching from one mode of transport to another in a really clever and unpredictable fashion. Although despite being what I'd consider to be the most cartoonish level of this era, it is ironically one of very few levels to not reference any specific cartoons. That said, while Taz does not make a physical appearance throughout the game, there is an allusion to the character on one of the buildings during the car chase.
Hey!
The bonus level, La Corrida, is entirely inspired by the infamous Bully for Bugs, including the bull itself, the setting, Bugs' Matador outfit, and even the loading screen. The remaining level I want to talk about here is the Carrot Factory. While it's not directly based on any particular cartoon, to me it bears a subtle resemblance to a scene from The Unmentionables, released in 1963, in which Bugs manages to get the better of Rocky and Muggsy in a cereal factory.
The way I work this thing, you'd think I knew something about it.
This might just be speculation, but the background art here looks somewhat similar. In this level, there are also a couple of times you have to chase down a blue mouse who's stolen a key required to progress. This mouse is arguably based on Hubie or Bertie, two mice first seen in a cartoon called The Aristocat from 1943.
Yeah, sure.
I always forget which mouse is which though, as I swear their colours switched a few times.
Yeah, sure.
But I want to say this mouse is possibly meant to be one of them? Maybe?
There's Hubie, there's Bertie, but who might you be?
Riot!
Anyway, we then move on to the final era, Dimension X, which is without a doubt based primarily on 1958 cartoon Hairway to the Stars.
Pardon me, sir, but could you... Hey, excuse me, pardon me.
The setting, much of the dialogue, the Green Martians, and the Space Speedway are all derived from this cartoon. Although the Green Martian dude was previously seen 3 years earlier in the Porky Pig and Sylvester short Jumpin' Jupiter. Although I guess he's not a Martian here, he's a Jupiterian. Is that even a thing? You could also argue that this level is part derived from Marvin the Martian's debut cartoon from 1948, Hair Devil Hair, which I've always seen as a prototypical version of Hairway to the Stars. Although it's obvious that much more inspiration is derived from the latter, as several of the loading screens are screenshots of this short. Interestingly, the outfit Marvin wears in this level is a different colour to the one seen in this particular short, although his red shirt and green helmet combo has become his staple in more recent years. Not that he looks any better for it, his outfit is still totally ridiculous.
You might say that fashion sense is a little, alien to him.
The level, The Conquest for the Planet X, is the only one not to take place on the Red Martian platforms, and is instead based on Planet X from
The Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
The whole concept behind the level is a race against Marvin the Martian to the summit to claim the planet in the name of the Earth. Evidently inspired by the plot of the aforementioned short film.
I claim this planet in the name of Mars.
And should you beat Marvin, he says his trademark catchphrase.
That makes me very angry.
The first time he utters these words is in his debut appearance.
You make me very angry.
Although considering the fact that his voice was much different in his initial cartoon, it sounds more like a reference to 1952 cartoon The Hasty Hare.
You have made me very angry.
And by the way, this level isn't the only one to reference Duck Dodgers. In the Space Speedway level, Bugs is required to beat the Master and find out the colour combination to pass. The Master is basically a massive eyeball, inspired by the aforementioned cartoon. A similar giant eye is seen in Rocket Squad, although I'm pretty certain it's specifically a reference to Duck Dodgers, not just because this is by far the most well-known of these two shorts, but also due to the presence of Marvin the Martian as an antagonist. Once we return to the present, the ending to the game once again references Nightmare Hair, as it essentially conveys the ending scene from the short word for word.
All right, Merlin. Giddy up. Get along now.
Although the guy tending to the horse is noticeably voiced by Billy West, as it sounds very much like Zap Brannigan.
All right, Merlin. Giddy up. Get along now. Pagan.
If you manage to obtain 100% completion, the credits scene also changes, as it now depicts Bugs in Pismo Beach, indicating that he finally made it.
Hello, Sesame.
I'm rich. I'm a happy lifer.
And now I'm afraid it's time for me to make like a hare and split. Bye-bye for now.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed this video. It might not be what anyone was expecting, but it's a video I've been wanting to make for some time. As I said previously, I am working on a non-licensed game review on and off, but this is a project I'm revisiting now and again, so it might be a long while away yet. It's pretty much been shelved while I've been working on this video, but I want to get going on it again eventually. In terms of uploads, I understand it's been fairly quiet recently, but I have actually been working working on several projects at the same time. A few scripts are fully written, and 2 games have been completely recorded. But everything is in progress, so I can't say when these things will be finished. I'm still trying to find the best way to manage my videos alongside work, so it still feels very messy right now. That said, I have every intention to be back with another review in the not too distant future. But for now, that's all folks. Bye bye for now.